Well, we begin with another major development in trade negotiations between Ottawa and Washington. The U.S. Commerce Secretary is thanking Canada for rescinding its digital services tax. And Ottawa says talks are now once again underway after a decision last night by the Prime Minister's office to axe the levy on U.S. tech giants just hours before it was set to take effect. The retroactive tax suddenly became a non-negotiable for U.S. President Donald Trump over the weekend. He said if Canada followed through, he would entirely terminate negotiations with Ottawa on tariffs. It's the latest in a tumultuous back and forth between Prime Minister Mark Carney's government and the Trump administration. Karina Roman is in our Ottawa bureau tracking the latest. And Karina, good morning. What more can you tell us about this reversal by Ottawa?
Well, and it is quite the reversal if you think about it, where Canada is rescinding this major policy, this major tax that was in the works for a number of years to take effect today, not delaying it, but actually fully rescinding it. And the reason is very clear. They're not hiding it in the news release that the government put out yesterday. It really is about getting trade negotiations on track. They say it's in anticipation of a mutually beneficial comprehensive trade agreement with the United States. And then Mark Carney in that news release said that in the negotiations on this new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States, and this is the key part, Canada's new government will always be guided by the overall contribution of any possible agreement to the best interests of Canadian workers and businesses. In other words, the agreement is more important than the DST. And it says that today's announcement, or he says, will support a resumption of negotiations toward the July 21st, 2025 timeline set out at the G7 Leaders Summit in Kananaskis. And that deadline nearly went out the window Friday when Donald Trump suspended talks, said that unless Canada got rid of the DST that was to go into effect today, that talks were off. And not only was it going into effect today for the future, it was a retroactive tax for the last 3 years, looking to bring in about $2 billion, just that retroactive part. So foregoing quite a bit of revenue by doing this move now.
Now, Karina, this digital services tax, it has been in the works for quite a while. So walk us through how it got here.
So it was announced in 2020. It did not become law until 2024. And as we've been reporting, it was not to go into effect until today. And it was brought in to address the fact that there's many large technology companies that operate in Canada, but are not based here. And so they're not paying taxes on any of the revenues that they generate by Canadians using their services. And so it was to apply to tech companies that have online marketplaces, advertising services, social media platforms that earn revenue from sales of data, user data. And it's for companies that make more than $20 million doing this. So most of those companies based in the U.S. Now, I mentioned that $2 billion retroactive payment that was going to be due today, or an estimated $2 billion. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Officer had estimated that Canada going forward would raise more than $7 billion over 5 years off this tax. Now, Canada had hoped for an agreement on a DST with other countries, mostly OECD countries, to bring this in. That didn't seem to get a lot of traction. It just seemed to be stalled. So you had European countries like France go ahead with this. And so Canada, despite knowing it was going to be and is a major irritant with the U.S., including with the Biden administration, also decided to go full steam ahead with its own DST. Some watchers thought of it as a negotiating piece, that it could be perhaps something that Canada puts on the table to get tariffs, especially the tariffs we're facing right now on aluminum and steel and autos, removed. So giving it up just to get talks back on track, some might perceive that as a negative for sure, but other experts don't see it as Canada folding. Have a listen.
In some ways, I can understand why some people are saying, well, now it looks like Carney is caved, and now it looks like Trump can just tell Carney what to do and he'll do it. But I don't see it that way. I see it that now Carney and our side can say, we've made this measure. And so we've moved some distance. Trump can count this as a win. He'll feel good about that. And then, hopefully this kind of straightens things out for the next few weeks.
Especially, Turnbull says, if Canada was willing to give up the DST anyway, then this instead can look like a win for Donald Trump. And if that's what he needs to give us a decent deal, then that's what Canada's willing to give. Now, the Canadian press is reporting there was actually a phone call between the Prime Minister and the President, I guess sometime between Friday and last evening, because voila, last evening is when we got the announcement they're rescinding this tax. So just to restate, there's no collection of the tax today. It's not going to be collected at all today or in the future. And then eventually we will see legislation from the finance minister to officially rescind the tax.
All right. Thank you, Karina. That's Karina Roman in Ottawa.